Salve rapaziada, sejam bem-vindos a mais um vídeo do nosso canal. E recentemente, mais precisamente entre 11 e 13 de junho, teve mais uma edição da Apex. Para quem não conhece, a Apex é um evento anual da XRP Ledger que reúne profissionais das indústrias de blockchain e tecnologia financeira. Ela serve como uma plataforma de aprendizado, networking e discussões sobre os últimos desenvolvimentos da XRPL. Nessa conferência tem palestras, painéis de discussões e workshops relacionados a vários tópicos de blockchain e ativos digitais. A Apex desse ano foi em Amsterdã e contou com pelo menos 3 vezes mais pessoas do que no ano passado. Bom, eu não consegui ir, mas para quem quiser, no canal do YouTube da Ripple tem mais de 50 vídeos relacionados ao Apex 2024, com todos os painéis, discussões, para quem tiver tempo e curiosidade em ver todos os vídeos. É lógico que a gente não vai conseguir comentar sobre todos os vídeos aqui, mas nos meus próximos vídeos eu vou tentar fazer um resumo das principais apresentações feitas nessa conferência. Tiveram vários vídeos incríveis, e inclusive no Apex 2024 foi a primeira vez que Brad Garlinghouse e Dave Schwartz, CEO e CTO da Ripple, dividiram o mesmo palco. Mas hoje eu decidi trazer para vocês uma colaboração entre a Ripple e a Archax, que foi anunciado durante a Apex 2024 e tem a ver com a tokenização dos ativos do mundo real, os chamados RWAs. Então, diretor, solta a vinheta aí para a gente começar o vídeo. Essa parceria entre a Ripple e a Archax visa trazer centenas de milhões de dólares em ativos do mundo real para XRP Ledger. A gente vai ver agora um trecho da conversa entre o Marcus Infanger, SVP na Ripple X, e o Graham Godford, CEO da Archax, falando sobre o crescimento de ativos tokenizados, destacando os 170 bilhões de dólares já tokenizados e a nova colaboração entre a Ripple e a Archax. Se liga aí.
Hey everyone, so great to be here with you all and seeing so many show up for Apex 2024. Tokenized real-world assets has been a major theme in crypto in the past 1 or 2 years, and we have seen significant growth with now over $170 billion of real-world financial assets tokenized on public chains, including stablecoins. However, given there's over $1 quadrillion worth of financial assets that exist in the world today, we're still really only scratching the surface. So I'm super excited to be here on stage today with Graham Rodford, the CEO of Archax, who's actually one of the pioneers in the space of bringing TradFi on-chain and leading this revolution of tokenizing financial assets. And hot off the press, earlier today, Ripple and Archax announced a new collaboration with the aim of bringing hundreds of millions of dollars of real-world assets onto the XRP Ledger over the coming 12 months, and to really help position the XRP Ledger as one of the leading chains for real-world asset tokenization.
A Archax tem sido pioneira em trazer o mercado financeiro tradicional, o chamado TradeFi, Traditional Finance, para a blockchain. E a história deles começou com um estudo profundo no potencial da blockchain e entendendo que os RWAs seriam negociados na blockchain no futuro muito próximo, começaram a conversar com os órgãos reguladores para garantir principalmente a parte de compliance antes dos seus competidores. Nessa entrevista, o Graham fala como a Archax começou e por que a regulamentação é crucial nesse espaço. Ou seja, lá atrás ele teve essa visão e já começou a entrar em contato com os órgãos regulamentadores do Reino Unido para garantir que a empresa dele prosperasse. Olha aí ele contando.
My name's Graham, co-founder, CEO of Archax. Spent 20 odd years in traditional finance, mainly asset management. I got interested in Bitcoin in 2013. CTO came to me and said, do you want to invest a bit? So started getting interested in the space from there, and kind of was a bit of a passenger until around 2016, 17, when the space started to pick up. So I guess around the ICO boom, and kind of noticed a couple of things. So one being that you had to learn quite a lot to invest in the space. I mean, not really that much, but you had to get familiar with terminology. It was a bit of a new trading class, a little bit inaccessible. And the other thing we noticed was that a lot of securities started to appear on chain. So it started us thinking, okay, this technology makes sense. Probably every financial instrument in this world is going to be on chain later. So why don't we develop a product that interests people? And originally we started trying to develop a hedge fund. And the idea being that people could invest in our vehicle and we would do the more complicated work. But what we noticed was that the infrastructure just wasn't in place. There were some decent exchanges starting to emerge, but the problem was that a trader could always just withdraw all the assets, and really institutions would never have invested. So instead, we started looking at, okay, if there's no one credible out there, and we believe every instrument is moving on chain, then what does that mean? And what we thought it meant was that every financial institution in the future is going to want to work with someone credible, and being credible probably means being regulated. So we went to the FCA in 2018, which was kind of before most of the crypto regulations were in place, and we said, look, we think everything you do is going to be on chain in the future. We want to start getting the licenses now. And some confusing discussions at first, but we applied in 2019, and in 2020 we got the UK's first regulated digital securities exchange, custody and brokerage license. And while we were doing that, in parallel, they brought out something called 5MLD, which is like a VASP license, and we got the first one of those as well. So the best way of thinking about us is kind of a Venn diagram of securities and crypto. We can do everything in both boxes, traditional or crypto, but where they overlap, that's really where we specialize in digital securities.
A colaboração entre a Ripple e a Archax marca um passo significativo para a tokenização de ativos do mundo real. Como eu falei, essa parceria visa trazer centenas de milhões de dólares para a XRP Ledger no futuro próximo, fazendo com que essa blockchain se consolide como uma das principais redes para tokenização. Mas o que isso significa para os usuários? Ele também fala sobre as implicações dessa colaboração para usuários e principalmente para os devs, para os desenvolvedores, e quais tipos de ativos a gente pode esperar ver na plataforma muito em breve.
I know all you guys want to hear about is this new collaboration between Archax and Ripple. So let's get into the heart of that. What does it mean more broadly? And also, what does it mean specifically for all the XRPL users and developers here in the room? Why should everyone care? What do you expect to see in terms of types of assets and issuers on XRPL 12 months from now?
Yes, part of the challenge that we've had is that working with the traditional players is a challenge. So we've kind of gone down the route of build everything yourself. So we've got the custodian and the exchange, and the bit that was really obviously missing for us was the tokenization bit. Now, there's quite a few tokenization platforms out there, and we gladly work with all of them. But as they all charge per issuance, and I'm doing things like tokenizing the S&P 500, it costs you a fortune if you work with third parties. So we decided to build our own tokenization engine, and within that we built the functionality we think is needed for securities. And we've known the Ripple XRPL team for some time now, and we've always kind of liked the technology as well. So we've decided to implement it into our tokenization engine. So what that means in terms of a product is everything we're doing is available on XRPL. So every security that's already available through us. So we've already tokenized UK equities, UK gilts. Aberdeen own us. We've tokenized their money market funds, and BlackRock as well. They're all available on our platform now. And more specifically to the community, hopefully it means we're kind of more of a useful partner. So we already have XRP trading on our venue, so people can trade that in its simplest form. But if people want to create tokens on XRPL, they can do it with us. If they want to create securities, they can do it with us. If they want to custody them, we use Ripple Custody, formerly Metico, which is now all embedded within our system. So hopefully those that are looking to really work on the digital security space can partner with us and have easier access to RWA.
Cara, eu vejo a tokenização como pouco mais além do que só transformar um ativo em digital. Eu acho que isso vai desbloquear novos níveis de eficiência, mas principalmente liquidez nos mercados financeiros. De fundos de mercado monetário a títulos tokenizados, eu acho que a tokenização vai revolucionar a forma como os ativos são gerenciados e negociados. No próximo trecho que eu separei, a gente vai ver o Graham falando como a tokenização pode melhorar a liquidez, reduzir custos e tornar os produtos financeiros mais acessíveis, especialmente para fundo de mercado monetário. Olha aí.
This kind of theme of crawl, walk, run is quite interesting as well, because I think the investment managers that are the most forward-looking are the ones getting most out of this. It's not just what it can do right now, but in the future. So, right now, I'm sure everyone's seen this in tokenization. People were kind of talking a lot about fractionalization and making illiquid products more liquid. So real estate was, commonly talked about, but actually it's gone in the other direction. We're looking at money market funds a lot, and tokenized treasuries. I'm sure everyone's seen those sorts of products, and kind of why are they appealing? And a few reasons really. Stablecoins are about 140 odd billion, I think, at the moment, and they keep all the yield on people's products. So the first thing is, people are realizing they're giving up 5% of their money. So if I'm a crypto trader and I want to go risk off, then why would I hold a stable coin if I can be earning 5.5% in a regulated money market fund? So they've seen a bit of an opportunity there. Around that as well, I think asset managers are realizing that, their old way of doing it, lots of paper, lots of documentation, is not the way of the future. They want to get their phone out, press buy. So they're realizing there's a new type of consumer and they have to lean more into digitization. So there's kind of some short-term reasons for that. Money market funds are priced at 1 as well. So that means, that you know what they're worth at any point in time. So they start to be usable like stable coins for payment. So that's why we're seeing a lot around that area. But it's quite hard still to find people that don't have access to a money market fund, but now want it. That's a bit of a challenge because the things that it's useful for aren't yet available. But the advantages in the future are definitely there. So again, if you're a hedge fund, what you'd typically be doing is trading all day long. And at the end of the day, if you've got cash in one of your prime brokers, you might think, okay, I'm not sure I want to take overnight risk, but you'd sweep it into a money market fund. When you do that, you suddenly kind of give up the utility value of the cash. You've just got, a holding somewhere. But tokenization of money market funds means, I have something now. I have a money market fund, but I can transfer it, I can spend it, I can use it as collateral. It actually has a lot of the same functionality of cash. So you start to realize that there's a world there where, if I can be in an investment product all the time that I'm not invested, then maybe there's less of a need for cash.
Cool. So it's fair to say, up until a year ago or something, TradFi mostly engaged around pilots using blockchains, and now we're really seeing this transition into actual production and, just kind of like harnessing the benefits of this technology, right?
Yeah, exactly. They almost all start the conversation now. We're not interested in a POC.
That's awesome.
We're not interested in a pilot. And there's a couple of ways tokenization has generally been happening. So one way, which is the most common way, is, Archax invests in a fund and we hold it. So much like the way stablecoins work, that really underlying is a load of fiat held in an account and each token represents a unit of that fiat. The way that beneficial ownership tokens or mirror works is that Archax holds the underlying traditional security and we create tokens that represent that. Now that's not the pure vision, but the token that's created ostensibly is the same as a pure token. It's still a security. You can transfer it. You can receive cash on chain. But the pure vision that everyone has is this idea of natively digital securities. So what that really means is the legal title exists on chain, not that Archax is holding it and we create a token.
E as stablecoins desempenham um papel fundamental nesse novo cenário financeiro. Elas fornecem a liquidez e a estabilidade necessária para possibilitar transações com o mínimo de atrito possível. A própria stablecoin da Ripple, a RLUSD, que foi anunciado também na Apex e será lançada ainda esse ano, está prestes a ser um divisor de águas nesse espaço. No próximo trecho que eu separei, o Graham fala um pouco sobre o papel das stablecoins no processo de tokenização e como a stablecoin da Ripple se integrará nesse processo.
Great segue into stablecoin. As you know, Ripple will launch its own stablecoin second half of this year. And so what role do you see stablecoins playing in all this?
Yeah, I think everyone puts things in the buckets, I think, or at least I do, crypto and stablecoins and then RWA, digital securities, but the reality is the securities piece, the real value only comes when you have something like RLUSD able to be used in line with the security. So, for example, if you want to have, everyone talks about atomic settlement, but when you go and look at most atomic settlement offerings in the space, all they are database entries where they're swapping beneficial ownerships of cash and tokens. But if you actually have someone buying an asset using a stablecoin and someone selling an asset on the same technology, that's something that didn't really exist before. In the traditional world, the fiat rails are over here, your asset rails over here, and you have to try and make them talk. But if they're on the same technology, then you can ask questions. If you've delivered this and you've delivered that, then settle. You can start paying corporate actions using stablecoins. You can, part of the interest and dividends that now exist in our system, we can pay out in XRPL. So if you've got a distributing fund, we could pay our LUSD out as a dividend, or we could pay scrip dividends of more of the same shares on XRPL. So, stablecoins really are one of the big keys to unlocking this space. So, it's great you guys are going into the space, and great that Jack's leading it as well, because Jack's a great guy.
E ainda teve salve aí para o Jack McDonald, que é o SVP de stablecoins da Ripple. E aí você pode se perguntar, cara, com tanta blockchain disponível, por que a Archax decidiu fazer essa parceria justamente com a Ripple? Por que escolher a XRP Ledger? Bom, durante essa conversa, o Graham também explica sobre o porquê da XRP Ledger, mas quem conhece um pouco sobre a XRP Ledger sabe que certamente estaria ligado à capacidade técnica e aos baixos custos de transação. Olha ele explicando aí.
Why have you decided to lean into XRPL? Why do you think XRPL is uniquely positioned to be a leading blockchain to help, bring TradFi assets on blockchains, basically?
Yeah, there's techie reasons and kind of non-techie ones, I guess. The kind of non-side is we've known the team a long time. Really get on well with all the team there, find them really open, and cross-border as well. So we've built up a relationship over 5 years. That's important for us. And then also the size of the company of Ripple, the balance sheet. It's important that the company's there and legitimate. A lot of financial institutions, if they see a small balance sheet, then it can concern them. And also the technology is battle tested. So it's been around a while. It's been used in anger. The uptime is there for everyone to see. So they're kind of the general reasons that we look at it. And then more specifically on the technology, it's fast enough. The transaction costs are low. There's no MEV issues that exist. There's trust lines in place. So things like the whitelisting I was talking about earlier, putting sanctions in place, they're all important. And the functionality that's being built natively on the chain. So you don't necessarily have to worry about people developing smart contracts and whether they're audited, but a lot of the functionality that we need is natively available on chain just for people to call, so it makes it a bit easier to develop against.
Bom, eu posso dizer que a gente já sabia disso tudo, mas é sempre bom ouvir de pessoas que são fora da comunidade, fora da Ripple, o porquê da XRP Ledger ser perfeita para a tokenização de ativos do mundo real. Embora o futuro da tokenização pareça promissor, a gente sabe que ainda existem desafios, desde questões bancárias até regulamentações globais que precisam ser superadas para uma adoção em massa. E no último trecho que eu separei, vamos ouvir o Graham falando sobre o ambiente regulatório atual, os desafios em andamento e o futuro da tokenização. Bora lá.
The biggest challenge, which is still ridiculous today, is banking. That's not just a securities problem. I suspect most companies in this room who are in crypto struggle to get a bank account.
That's a little bit contradictory, though, right?
Yeah,
You're engaging with or financial institutions on helping them to come on chain. At the same time, as a crypto native company, you can't get a bank account.
Yeah,
How
exactly.
does that make sense?
It drives me crazy when you see them sitting on a panel talking about innovation, but you can't get a bank account. And we're not just a very regulated crypto company. We're one of the most regulated companies in the UK. We have a full custody license, a full exchange license, and we can't get a bank account because people are still worried about crypto. And banks get to operate independently, so they kind of get to choose their customers. So look, that's a bit of an aside. That's a big problem for the industry that really needs to be resolved. I think it's even more of a problem in the US than it is in the UK. But since most things are in dollars, it's a big issue. Outside of that, everyone knows RWA is coming. Larry Fink's talking about it now. It's great. It's all there. But even though they're coming, building the full infrastructure is quite challenging. So, for example, let's say we tokenized Archax equity on XRPL. That's pretty easy for me to do today. Now, when you want to trade it on a secondary market, the rules in the UK and a lot of jurisdictions globally say you need to go and register that security into a central securities depository, a CSD. When you do that, a CSD typically uses old technology. So, I go there with my pretty XRPL token and they immediately put it back into an old database format and my token's kind of valueless and the core books and records are in the CSD. That's a problem. We're building a CSD out of Luxembourg. Hopefully we're pretty close to getting that license over the line. Thank you. That will help solve that issue. And the other issue is the one of liquidity. In crypto, it's easy to get liquidity, it's easy to get market makers because Bitcoin trades everywhere, so a market maker can hedge their risk, trade 24/7. If I go to them and say, hey, I've tokenized my house on XRPL, can you make me a market? They're like, well, I can't hedge my risk, I'm going to have a wide spread, you're going to have to pay me. So it's actually really challenging to do that. So it's much easier if you tokenize something that's already traded, or you tokenize something with good price predictability, so maybe a money market fund or the like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, well, we've actually got our European application happening here in the Netherlands. So we actually find the regulator here and the regulation to be quite forward-looking. And then obviously across the whole of Europe, you've got MiCA coming into place as well. So the whole of Europe's a pretty, good place to operate. I'd say though that there are those jurisdictions that are harder to get your registrations in than others. So I think there's a lot of regulation in the space, but there's a lot of people playing regulatory arbitrage. But I'd say generally Europe's in pretty good shape. Singapore and Maz seem to be charging forward. Project Guardian has attracted the interest of a lot of people. Hong Kong, Korea's moving forwards, albeit in an internal shape. The US, I thought, was really struggling to kind of find its footing, especially when Silvergate, Signature, and Silicon Valley all had their issues the other year. But then the BlackRock ETF, kind of has changed everything a little bit for me. I mean, it's the most successful ETF ever, which is kind of incredible. And I think I read yesterday they've got like 300,000 Bitcoin. I might have that slightly wrong, but the value of that is pretty obscene. I think it's something like 21 billion just in this ETF alone. So it feels like the US is gradually starting to move forwards as well. I think places like Luxembourg and I believe France, where they've changed the law to allow natively digital securities, you're allowed to have your equity on chain. That's quite important. But generally speaking, like the direction of positive trend in every jurisdiction is there. There's very few places now that aren't saying this is the future.
Now let's get the crystal ball out. This RWA hype has been around for many years, formerly known as STOs. And obviously it's grown, as initially mentioned in my intro. In terms of like looking at the adoption cycle, really 5 years out or whatever, like what do you expect? Where are we at right now? What do you see in, say, 5 years from now? And more specifically, end of 2025, like what's the total volume of tokenized financial assets you expect to see on blockchains in total?
I think we're still early in terms of the assets, but the infrastructure and the pieces are now all getting in place. I think the Biddle fund we talked about earlier is $500 million alone. The Franklin Templeton Benji is like 350, and then you've got Ondo's tokens at like 150. So there's a kind of $1 billion in these treasury alone products developing. And then I don't know where crypto's at now, around 2.5 trillion, something like that. And when you look over at the equity side, you've got Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia. They're all like 3 trillion. They're all bigger than everything in crypto. Like the size of the opportunity is the largest thing that we've seen in crypto, the amount of RWA. So you don't really need much volume to be moving to make a significant impact. And if someone like DTCC or Euroclear says we're using a blockchain, then overnight all of those assets become digital. So I'm unsurprisingly pretty bullish on this. Over the next 5 years, I think you'll see more issuances becoming natively digital. It wouldn't surprise me if in 5 years' time that tends to be the way that most issuances are allowed. And by the end of 25, it's going to be getting close to 1 trillion, maybe even up to 3, I'd say.
Excluding stablecoins.
Excluding stablecoins, yeah. I mean, the space is like 1.4 quadrillion or something like that. I know, and the existing financial market is one thing, but there's kind of a new financial market emerging as well.
Right.
Like metaverse loans, metaverse mortgages, like all of these things that never really existed before, and you put them together, the future financial market's even bigger. So, in terms of regulated products, I'm pretty comfortable.
Bom, isso mostra só um pouco do que se pode esperar da XRP Ledger. A tokenização de ativos do mundo real não é apenas uma tendência, é uma revolução que está transformando a indústria financeira e está acontecendo agora. Com a Ripple e a Archax liderando o caminho, eu realmente acho que a gente está à beira de uma nova era, onde os ativos financeiros serão mais líquidos, acessíveis e eficientes. E se você ficou até aqui, muito obrigado pela moral, como sempre. Não esqueça de comentar, compartilha, dá seu like. Avisa para aquele amigo que você sempre conversa de cripto, fala que tem vídeo novo no canal e fica ligado para os próximos, que tem muita coisa que eu quero trazer para vocês. Então é isso, até a próxima. Fui!